one would expect. The message-based system, now here comes the highlight of our presentation. You have to say, nobody does. So, can you describe it?
Well, yeah, basically. Yes.
Which one?
Do you actually have an implementation of ISA inside on the system and not? Do you actually have ISA inside?
Maybe Ned can jump in.
Yeah, they wrote their own from scratch. So supposedly they have ISA 7.
The whole writing from scratch thing is something very typical for them. They try to reuse open source software or GPS software whenever it's possible, but they are having a very, very hard time using code which is not as optimized as they want to have it, or is not as good as they want to have it. So they don't have a problem to rewrite something in case they don't feel comfortable with it, which is kind of it's their way of handling it, and the performance of the result just speaks for itself. But it's a very they make a lot of work for that.
Yeah.
But their stack is integrated. They have one stack, one source code for PRI, BRI, and SSL. So it's all kind of like a one. They're all three are in one.
The server engine or the message system, you can see every pod sends message to the message queue and gets messages back from the dispatcher. You can interact with the system from the outside, so it's possible to connect third-party software with this message system, and it is a very powerful way of doing it. It is just very easy to debug problems too. So I really like the way you can just tend it on that and see what's going on. So because we are all coming from some sort of Asterisk background, probably, I'm not sure. I want to give us a little example, just the typical example. We have two phones. One is 2000, one is 2001. So what we would have to do in Asterisk to connect them, that they can call each other. So we would have to have the zip.com, and the extension.com. And that is kind of the minimal solution here. So that would give us the basic feature of calling each other. That's the Asterisk way. The Yate way is a bit less complex. You just have one file, the rec file, and whenever you register a user in Yate, Yate already knows that you can call this user with his registration. So it has this sort of intelligence, and that's one of the parts where you have to, as an Asterisk user, have to step back and say, okay, yeah, how would I do it if I wouldn't know Asterisk? And that is the clear way how you do it, because that is the common sense way. But anyhow, you can interact with that. So you can overrule these rules by higher priorities. As Jim said, they have a set of different priorities, and you can have different engines which give different results for routings. Let me just, the flexible routing engine, and you can see it, for example, here. That is a voicemail example, and you see in the beginning they have a regular expression, standard regular expression, nothing new to learn, and here there was a system that's externally, so they don't use the approach of Asterisk they're trying to do most of the application within the engine, but say, okay, the engine is just a kind of switch, or more or less, and we do all the application outside to keep it clean, to keep it more stable, and obviously it is much more performant. But going back, if you want to see, if you want to do something like zip show peers for asterisk, you would use Telnet for their interface, and then you enter status rec file, and then you see this part here, which is just the that's the output that you would get compared with zip show users or zip show peers. You want to add anything to the routing engine?
I think what I thought was really interesting was they have a regular expression routing module, but you can actually do routing from different modules. So you can use multiple modules to do that. In theory, I guess you could write a module with anything that's capable of talking to the messaging system through the socket and do routing in, I don't know, like a shell script or something like that if you wanted to. But the regex route module is obviously very powerful, and so it seems to tend to be the default. But it's just important to note that you can yank that out and put in whatever you want to handle routing if you so choose.
What we don't have on the slides, because we just forgot it, or because maybe it's just that normal in Yate, you can do everything in the database. So it's not like with asterisk where you have real time and real time and whatever real time. It's just everything you can configure can be saved and stored in the database and without any problem. Conferences, always a feature people want to know.
Yeah, the Yate conferencing engine is incredibly powerful. They have a customer who has routinely runs 70 channels, 70 people with full duplex audio into one conference room on a server, and it only puts a 20% load on the CPU. They figured that the network system on the server will probably break down before Yate does in terms of handling conferencing. They're really proud of their mixer, and it's Paul did this little experiment where he took like 200 WAV files and had his call generator send all 200 WAV files into a conference room at the same time. And obviously it sounded like a complete disaster, but it was actually mixing all of those audio streams together in real time without any, other than what 200 WAV files sound like. So pretty remarkable. And then again, to create a conference room, you don't have to configure anything. You just you create, I guess we'll call it an extension for lack of a better word, and you simply send it to the conference module and say, this is how I want this conference to be created. And it's done on the fly as the call is created. So.
And again, the problem probably is going to be the network connection, not the engine. So it is very, very powerful. It has something most German users miss with asterisk. That is the possibility to activate the conference within the call without reinventing the wheel. So there's a module which is called PBX Assist, which just gives you basic features, or basic, not basic anymore, but features for which normal users would expect in a PBX. So you can activate that here.
And as I understand it, that ties into the messaging system. So you can sort of tie a DTMF event to a message that will then tell a module to go and do something, which could be pretty much anything you can imagine.
IVR is the next thing most people are interested in. And then that is a totally new way of doing it compared with asterisk. We all know the asterisk way of doing IVRs. You either do it in a dial plan or you do it with some AGI sort of thing. Yate says, okay, we don't want to care about the whole logic. We just put it outside, and they wrote libraries for common programming languages like Python, PHP, probably do.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know PHP is the most popular one for them.
I think Python is pretty popular too, but I never got the Python thing. So this is a very basic example. So they have this ready state engine for IVRs, and it's a very powerful way of doing it. Obviously, for just a very small IVR, it would be easier doing it in the dial plan or asterisk. But once you get to more layers or interacting with